r/AskReddit. Serious urban explorers of Reddit, what was the creepiest or most mysterious thing you've seen or found during your exploration? We were climbing a utility shaft behind a lecture hall that ran up the length of the building. At the bottom of the shaft were 2 or 3 boxes filled with these black and white pictures of mannequins. Some were out of focus headshots of the faceless mannequins, some pictures of them in weird positions, and some just kinda generic looking shots. Creepy but w/y. After climbing up 3 or 4 stories we found a mattress and blanket. On its own the mattress would be curious/sad, but the pictures below added a layer of creepy. Whenever we'd explore around campus I always figured, facetiously, that I could live in one of these dead spaces if S hit the fan. I guess we found someone who was actually doing it. I explored an abandoned brain trauma rehab center in my area. The most unsettling things in there were the dated wheelchairs of patients with the patients' names on them throughout the building, as well as one room at the end of a hall that had a seat with straps that looks like it was used to restrain patients. The handrests of the seat had scratch marks, as if the patients were clawing to get out, which kinda creeped me out. Went to Chernobyl last week, and I mean, as you would expect, the whole place is pretty messed up. We were looking around an old daycare and a doll had been left rotting on a bed with its head rested on the pillow. Was made creepier by the fact that the rest of my tour group had moved on, but I wanted to look around in the room some more, so I was just alone. Gave me the creeps. I was exploring an abandoned hospital near my house with my buddies. The complex was huge. It had a college, living areas and a massive main treatment center. After several weekends of exploring the area we found lots of cool things. Old surgical equipment, rooms blocked off and covered with radiation warnings, and massive machines we could only guess the purpose for. One weekend we were way lost in the main area and found a back staircase in some random back room that went up to a floor that wasn't marked on the floor plans or main stairways. The floor had no windows at all, so we had to rely entirely on our crappy flip phone screens on full brightness as flashlights. We went in the first room and the only thing in it was a human-sized cage. It had a locking door and that little sliding thing on the bottom to put food trays in. There was only a small cot in it and a very small toilet. We were a little spooked out and tried to pretend it was possibly something else, but then we went down the hallway and looked in each room and found only the same large cages in each room. We quickly dipped out of there and unfortunately they have since torn down the complex. I tried to do some research into it and the only thing I found was that there was also a mental hospital in the complex, so it's possible those cages were for the really far gone patients. About 20 minutes from my house there is a town with only one paved road and then a couple of little dirt roads. If you follow the road all the way to the end it leads to cliffs with a lighthouse. There is a speed sign along the road with a tiny dot of black spray paint on it. If you walk directly into the bushes for about 300 meters you find an old abandoned bomb shelter. My friends and I used to smoke there when we were younger. It's got a spiral staircase that leads down into one big room with 2 small rooms. It's full of graffiti now and there's a little fireplace and stuff, super cool but really creepy. Anyways, one night at about 1 AM my friend and I decided to go for a walk down there as she lived in this town and her parents were asleep, so it was easy for us to sneak out and we wanted an adventure. As we are walking into the bushes and can see the bomb shelter in sight, but we can see a light flickering inside, so we freeze and just watch for a couple of minutes. Then we hear the sound of a group chanting. We want to get a closer look, so we creep a little closer, and as we were doing so I stood on a branch and it snapped, literally 1 second after the lights went out and the chanting stopped. We sprinted the whole way home. And it freaks me out thinking about what could have happened as we were 2 15-year-old girls at the time. I have a good one for this. Definitely scared me, and I'm not one to typically get on edge. I had just got a new camera and wanted to go take some photos of our downtown area. Nice buildings and a riverfront, so seemed like a good place to practice some shots and see what I could come up with. A couple of buildings were shut down. Blared up windows on the first floor and chains on the front doors. One of the doors had enough of a gap we could squeeze in, so we did. The building was about 7 floors I suppose, totally empty on the bottom level. no dividing walls, and other than some columns/beams standing, there was one wall with metal stairs leading to the next floor. The second floor, which was not fully intact, had some planks that lead across huge holes, just an unfit place to be in. Well, decided to walk up to see what the second floor had. There were maybe 30 steps leading to the second floor. My friend started up first, and I was behind him. We got up about 10 steps, and the sound of someone running down them was heard. Boom, boom, boom. We felt a vibration of the footsteps coming down towards us. The strange thing is, we could see the top of the stairs and no one was there. We turned and ran out, pretty scared. The only thing that I could think of that would explain the noises and vibrations felt would be the steps collapsing or coming unbolted. I know the sound was footsteps coming towards us, but have no clue what it was. I was going through an old storm drain tunnel thing. It was pretty large, and you could walk through it without crouching. The walls started off with your general graffiti, but as you got in further the tunnel got smaller and smaller, until we were almost crawling. The graffiti changed further in. It started to get demonic with pentagrams and notes about Satan. The path was then blocked by a shrine looking thing with old flowers, and it had a man made out of sticks like something out of the Blair Witch. We were about to knock it over to get past it, but right before we did we heard a rattlesnake go off in the dark right behind it. We booked it out of there real quick. I'm not sure if anyone will see this. I spent my childhood on an old abandoned farm. The barns there were mostly rundown buildings with little to explore. The most interesting thing about them was simply the animals that nested up in them. Except this one barn. It was larger than the rest and had all these little coves and crevices. Yet somehow, the upstairs was the creepiest. It seemed to loom over anything that stood by it and always gave off these dark vibes. It seemed mysterious and untrustworthy, and for some reason my father felt the need to board up its windows sometime before I was born. The floors were unstable enough to collapse at any moment and I wasn't allowed up there, but I went anyways. There was a tiny narrow staircase that led to the upstairs. The steps themselves cracked with every step. When I reached the top of the stairs there was writing on the wall that said "Home Sweet Home." There was writing on the door leading to the living quarters with the writing Finkville. The rest was pitch black with nothing living there with the exception of a large nest which I've never seen occupied. There was writing on the walls of men's names with arrows pointing to the nearest room. There were glass bottles all over the place, covered and filled with dirt and dust. I found a few strange artifacts, one of which was a weird license plate nailed to the floor for some odd reason. One thing that always perplexed me was a small torn piece of fabric with a flower pattern on it that I can only imagine belonged to either a tablecloth or a women's dress. There was this beautiful, old abandoned house down the street from me when I was a kid, and I always wondered what had happened there. It was this huge farmhouse right in the middle of an overgrown field covered in ivy and weeds. Friend and I walked up one day and went inside. There were obviously squatters there at some point, since there was clothes strewn about and boxes of old food containers. There was this staircase that spiraled up 3 stories in the center of the room and clothes were laid across at the top as if to dry. The stairs weren't in good condition, so we stayed on the first floor. It looked to have had a fire at some point, but only in a few rooms. They were completely black and destroyed. All the windows were boarded up, so no light was coming in through them, and I was using my camera to flash and take pics. On one flash we thought we saw somebody, quickly looked at the camera, and ran out swiftly. On the camera was an outline of a dark person. It was probably a shadow, but it totally creeped us out. I once was alone in an abandoned warehouse in the middle of nowhere with my now husband, then boyfriend. We had been there several times before to play airsoft in the dark with friends, so we were pretty comfortable with the place, though it did have a very creepy vibe. That time, we were sitting near the edge of a big open floor area where all the stuff used to be stored, hanging out with each other because why not? It was the middle of the night and pitch black inside, and rain was pouring down on the metal roof. We were just doing our hangout thing, and not paying much attention to anything else, until we both heard it and snapped upright. Footsteps. Very close footsteps, and very distinct even over the roar of rain on the roof. My boyfriend quickly grabbed his flashlight and trained it on the direction the steps were coming from. Again, we were in a very open area that was only one level, and the flashlight was strong. We absolutely should have been able to see someone if they were close enough to hear them like that. There was absolutely nothing where the source should have been. We both practically pissed ourselves and scrambled out the nearest window pronto. We never went back after that night. Thank you for watching. Like the video and leave a comment if you enjoyed. If you are new here, subscribe to the channel, follow on Twitter and Reddit, and join the Discord so you never miss a video.